My name's Emily Mitchell. I'm 27, and I was sitting in Uncle Edward's will reading, surrounded by relatives who looked more like predators than family. The chandelier glinted off the polished table as everyone leaned in, hungry. I had dared to hope. Uncle Edward always said I was different. And then came the announcement. To Emily Mitchell, $10. The room exploded. Charlie slapped his knee laughing, and Aunt Victoria didn't even try to hide her smug smile. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Being a Mitchell meant you knew exactly where you stood in the wealth food chain. I wasn't broke, but I was treated like I was because I didn't follow the Mitchell playbook. The only one who ever saw me for who I was? Uncle Edward, my dad's older brother. After our grandparents passed, he became the head of the family, but to me, he was something gentler. He never looked at me like I was a failure. I still remember being 12 when he handed me my first camera. Nothing fancy, just a basic digital one. But from that moment, the world looked different. My life changed. Emily, he once said, his blue eyes sparkling beneath his wild white brows. Most folks see the world in profit and loss, but you see it in light, shadows, and moments. Don't lose that. The Mitchell Empire, all real estate and stocks. My grandfather started with one modest building in Boston, and somehow the family name ended up etched into half the city's skyline. Uncle Edward took that fortune and doubled it. Naturally, every Mitchell was expected to study finance and climb the corporate ladder. I chose photography instead. That decision drove a wedge between me and the rest of the family. My parents pretended to support me, but the disappointment was obvious. After they died in a car crash 5 years ago, I became truly alone. Except for Uncle Edward. He'd check in from time to time, inviting me to his penthouse just to hear about my latest project. While the others sipped vintage wine and traded investment talk, he asked about light, framing, and subjects. Aunt Victoria made no secret of her opinion. Photography's a hobby, not a career, dear, she'd say, flicking her diamond-covered fingers like she was swatting away a fly. Her kids, Olivia and Charlie, were the poster children for Mitchell success, finance degrees, cushy jobs, and egos to match. Then there was Lawrence Davenport, Edward's longtime business partner, not technically family, but with enough clout to act like it. He looked at me the same way the others did, a blend of pity and quiet disdain. Through it all, Uncle Edward was quietly in my corner. He never gave me money, and I never asked. I wanted to earn every gallery showing on my own. Still, sometimes I'd see him lingering at the back of an exhibit, gone before I could say hello. Our last talk came 3 weeks before he died. Late Tuesday night, my phone buzzed. "Emily, my dear," he said, sounding tired. "How are you?" I told him I was working on a new series about loneliness in cities. "This old body is just reminding me it's not 20 anymore," he chuckled. Then he surprised me. "I saw your Hamilton Gallery show. It was stunning." "You were there?" "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. "I like to observe," he said. "Emily, I'm proud of you. You chose your path. That takes guts." I thanked him, emotional. "Just remember," he added, "real wealth isn't what you own. It's who you are." I thought he was just being sentimental. Now I know better. The call came on a gray, rainy Thursday. Uncle Edward had died peacefully in his sleep at 72. A week later, I got word about the will reading. I nearly skipped it. Why bother? I knew Uncle Edward cared, but I wasn't expecting a dime, and honestly, I didn't want to face the smug looks from my relatives. My one-bedroom apartment, complete with a closet-turned-darkroom, was worlds away from Mitchell luxury. Still, something told me I needed to go. Maybe it was for closure. Or maybe I hoped he'd left me something small, like a favorite photo or one of his books. What happened next? I never could have imagined. The law office, Peterson, Goldstein, and Walsh, took up the top floors of a sleek Boston skyscraper. The moment I stepped into the marble lobby, I felt completely out of place. My black dress was fine, just not couture like Olivia's or Aunt Victoria's. I was led to a conference room on the top floor. Everyone else had already arrived, huddled in tight little circles. Aunt Victoria, of course, had claimed the head of the table, regal in her tailored navy suit, with silver hair perfectly styled. She looked like she belonged in a Vogue spread titled Wealth and Control. Charlie and Olivia were by the window, pretending to admire the harbor while likely whispering about the inheritance. Lawrence was deep in conversation with someone I didn't know, probably another suit from the boardroom. No one really looked up when I entered. Olivia offered me a polite, strained smile before turning away again. I sat at the far end, as far from the center as I could, trying to blend into the chair. Right at 10 o'clock, Mr. Peterson walked in. Tall, thin, with round glasses and an expression like carved stone. He carried a worn leather folder. A young assistant followed, wheeling in stacks of documents. "Good morning," he said, settling into the seat across from Aunt Victoria. "We're here for the reading of Edward James Mitchell's final will. Before we begin, let me offer my condolences. Mr. Mitchell was more than a client. He was a friend." A few murmured polite acknowledgments. Then he opened the folder. "The will is very clear. Mr. Mitchell left detailed instructions," he announced, adjusting his glasses. The reading began. Aunt Victoria got the Cape Cod summer home. No shock there, she basically lived in it every summer anyway. The satisfied glint in her eyes said it was exactly what she'd expected. Charlie got the vintage cars, a multi-million-dollar collection. He beamed. Finally, something he actually cared about more than himself. Olivia was awarded the art collection, contemporary high-value pieces. She nearly squealed as she clasped her hands. Lawrence got a sizable chunk of Mitchell Group shares and a sealed letter. Clearly something personal from Edward. The rest of the family received trinkets, books, watches, heirlooms with personal meaning. I sat quietly, not expecting much. Maybe a camera of his, or a book he'd marked up. Something small. Something that said, "You mattered." Then Mr. Peterson looked up. "To my niece, Emily Mitchell, I leave the sum of $10. For a second, silence. Then a snicker. Then open laughter. $10? Charlie laughed. "Guess you can treat yourself to a tall latte, Emily." Olivia looked mildly ashamed, though not enough to hide the smirk tugging at her mouth. Aunt Victoria didn't laugh. She just stared at me with that cold mix of pity and satisfaction. "Maybe now you'll appreciate the value of a stable career," she said. I burned with humiliation. $10. It wasn't about the amount, it was a message, a public slap. Even Edward's gardener got $5,000. "You have the check ready?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Mr. Peterson nodded stiffly. After the reading, I wanted to bolt, run from the smug faces, the judgment, but pride held me in that chair. I refused to give them the victory of watching me break. As Mr. Peterson droned on about leftover properties, I stayed frozen. Edward had told me he was proud of me. Was that a lie? Or was this some twisted lesson? No matter the reason, it stung. It was cruel, calculated, a public confirmation that I didn't belong. When the reading ended, I managed to stand. The $10 check felt radioactive in my palm. I tucked it away quickly and headed for the exit, desperate to escape the air thick with judgment. As I neared the door, I heard them, voices buzzing like flies. "I figured he'd toss her a pity gift," Victoria whispered to Lawrence. $10 won't even pay her parking." Charlie laughed loud enough for the whole floor to hear. I stopped. The door still closed, memories crashing into me. Edward at my graduation, giving me a thumbs up while the others looked bored. Edward telling my parents, artists matter just as much as CEOs. The birthday calls, every year without fail, even when my cousins forgot. Was it all just in my head? Had I imagined the bond, the quiet support? My friends were never convinced about Uncle Edward. "He's no different than the others," Zoe used to say. If he cared, he'd help you out financially. And I always defended him. He respects my independence, I'd argue. He gets me in a way no one else in that family does. Now, I felt like a fool. The black sheep who'd clung to a fantasy that maybe, just maybe, someone in the family saw me. But pain was hardening into anger, a slow, steady burn in my chest. Years wasted chasing approval from people who'd never give it, and Edward, the one I believed in, had publicly humiliated me in the end. I was nearly at the exit when Olivia called out, "Emily, wait!" I turned, eyes still glassy, jaw clenched. I didn't care if she saw. "I'm sorry about all that," she said, nodding toward the room. Charlie shouldn't have laughed. "But you didn't?" I shot back. She looked down, clearly uncomfortable. "I didn't mean to laugh. You know how Uncle Edward was. He liked to teach lessons in dramatic fashion." "And what exactly was this one? That I should have sold out and joined the family brand?" "Maybe," she whispered. "It's not too late, Emily. You could still join us. Learn the business." The suggestion was so wildly off base, I nearly laughed. "I don't want your life, Olivia. I never did." Charlie strolled over, flipping his new car keys with smug ease, no doubt from his $1 million inheritance. "Hey, cuz," he said, with that fake charm he used at networking events. "Don't sweat it. Need a loan? I got you." His smugness snapped something in me. "I don't need your pity or your money, Charlie. I built something real without writing Uncle Edward's name." His expression turned ugly. "You ungrateful Charlie," Aunt Victoria snapped, cutting him off. I hadn't even noticed her come closer. "That's enough." Emily made her choices, and Edward made his. "It's done." I stared at the three of them. Family by blood, but strangers in every other way. "You're right," I said. "Edward made his choice. Now here's mine. Goodbye." I turned to leave, but Mr. Peterson's voice stopped me. "Miss Mitchell, a moment, please." The others looked around, confused. "There are a few documents that still require your signature," he said, unreadable. Charlie muttered, "Probably a waiver so she can't sue for more than her $10. I ignored him. I could still walk out, but there was something different in Mr. Peterson's eyes, a quiet intensity that made me pause. "It won't take long," he added. I sighed. "Fine." Curiosity won. "We'll wait for you, Emily," Aunt Victoria said stiffly. It sounded more like obligation than care. "That won't be necessary," Mr. Peterson said smoothly. "This may take some time. I'm sure you all have other things to get to." Victoria looked ready to protest, but Lawrence gently placed a hand on her arm. "Victoria, the board meeting is at 1. Let's go prep." Aunt Victoria gave in with obvious reluctance. "Very well, Emily. We'll be in touch about the memorial service." I didn't believe her for a second, but I nodded, grateful to see them go. As they packed up and trickled out, I lingered by the door, bracing for whatever final embarrassment these papers had in store. I had no clue what was really coming. My life was about to be flipped upside down. The door shut with a deep final click. Mr. Peterson paused, almost listening, then turned back to me. His whole demeanor had shifted. The stiff, formal face was gone. Now he looked expectant. "Miss Mitchell, Emily, if I may, please come back inside." I followed, confused and curious, back to the same table where I'd just been handed my $10 slap in the face. The young assistant was gone. "Have a seat," he said, motioning not to my old spot, but to the head of the table, Uncle Edward's seat. I hesitated. "It's appropriate," he added, nodding gently. I slowly sat down. Mr. Peterson took the seat beside me, then pulled a sealed envelope from his leather folder. Unlike anything he'd used earlier, my name was written on the front, in Uncle Edward's unmistakable handwriting. "Before I give this to you," he said, "let me explain. I've been the Mitchells' attorney for over 30 years. I worked with your grandfather, and later your uncle. And I've never seen a more meticulous plan than the one Edward created in his last few months." "Plan?" I echoed. completely thrown. "He was diagnosed with terminal cancer 8 months ago," Mr. Peterson said gently. "He kept it private. Just me and his doctors knew. He spent that time preparing, but I think his letter will say it best." He handed it to me. It felt heavier than it looked. On the back was a wax seal stamped with Uncle Edward's signet. I looked up, unsure. "Should I open it now?" "Please," he said. "Take your time. I'll be just outside." He stepped out, shutting the door softly behind him. My hands trembled as I broke the seal and pulled out a thick stack of paper, covered in Uncle Edward's graceful handwriting. I started reading. "My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, then the dramatic performance of my will has played out. You're probably hurt, confused, even angry, and I'm truly sorry for that. The $10 gift was a ruse, one I hope you'll forgive by the time you reach the end. It was my last little act of misdirection. First and most importantly, you are the primary heir. What the others received today? That was just the surface. You now hold about 80% of my estate, roughly $340 million, plus my properties, my controlling shares in the Mitchell Group, and more. But Emily, wealth without purpose is a cage. I've seen it corrupt this family, twisting values, erasing authenticity. The Mitchells suffer from what I call wealth sickness, the belief that a person's value is measured in dollars. You're the only one who broke free. You chose meaning over money, art over assets. I've watched your journey with so much pride, even when I stayed silent. Your photography isn't just skillful, it's soulful. You see the world with empathy and honesty. You're probably asking, if I'm so proud, why the act? Why let you believe even for a moment that I saw you as insignificant? There are 2 reasons. First, protection. If they knew you were my main heir, they'd circle like sharks, manipulating, pressuring, or even fighting it. By revealing this after they've accepted their shares, you're shielded, legally and emotionally. It buys you space to breathe. Second, and just as vital, I wanted you to hear them unfiltered. No performance, no diplomacy. Just raw truth from people who thought there'd be no consequence for showing it. Knowledge is power. And now you truly see who they are. What you might not know is who I really was. The world knew Edward Mitchell, the businessman, but that wasn't all of me. Privately, I was something else. I collected art, not for status, but for love. And for the past 5 years, I've been your biggest collector. The name Patrick Sullivan probably means nothing to you, but it's me. My pseudonym. I used it to buy your work from galleries across the country. Nearly every big sale you've made? That was me. There's a gallery in my Beacon Hill apartment, dedicated entirely to your work. Peterson has the key. I didn't do this out of sympathy. I did it because your art moves me. You show the world as it is, not as we pretend or fear it to be. There's truth in your lens, Emily. Real, necessary truth. Never question the value of your art or your own worth. Yes, you're wealthy now, extremely so, but that comes with responsibility. The Mitchell Group supports thousands of families, and your choices will have real impact. I'm not asking you to suddenly become a CEO. That's not who you are. The company's in good hands, but be aware, you now hold serious influence. There are a few conditions, simple ones. First, you must continue photographing for at least 10 years. That's non-negotiable. If you give up your art, everything goes to a list of charities. No exceptions. Second, I want you involved in the Mitchell Foundation. You'll have full control over its direction, but I hope you'll use it to uplift other artists like you. Third, this isn't a rule, just a plea. Be careful who you trust. Money changes people. And if you're not careful, it can change you too. Stick with those who saw your worth at $10, not just when you're worth $10 million. Mr. Peterson knows all the logistics. Trust him. He's been one of the few constants I've relied on. Let him help you through the start. I wish I could see the woman you'll grow into with all this now in your hands. I wish we'd been closer. Part of the distance was me trying to shield you from family drama. The other part was my own flaw. Something many Mitchells carry: emotional distance. But know this: I've always loved you. This isn't just an inheritance. It's a legacy. Not the old Mitchell version of wealth and status, but a new one you'll create. A legacy of truth, empathy, and vision. Oh, and the $10? My father gave me that exact amount when I told him I'd start my own business. He said it was all I'd ever get. It hurt. But it ended up being the best gift he ever gave me. It pushed me to build my own life, my own way. Don't cash the check. Frame it. Let it remind you that value doesn't come from money. With all my love and belief in your journey. Uncle Edward. I read it twice. By the second time, tears blurred the words. A storm of emotions rolled over me: grief, disbelief, anger, and something close to peace. Grief for what we could have had. Anger at the public show, even though I understood why he did it. Relief that I hadn't misread him all these years, and total shock at the sheer size of what he'd left me. $340 million. Control of the Mitchell Group. Properties I didn't even know existed. I was still in disbelief when Mr. Peterson knocked softly and stepped back inside. He was Patrick Sullivan, I blurted out. Mr. Peterson smiled. He was proud of that little act. He'd sneak into your gallery shows in disguise, hat, glasses, the whole thing. He was proud of you, Emily. So very proud. Why hadn't he just told me? Edward was complicated. He believed real strength came from carving your own path, without family crutches. Still, he couldn't watch you suffer, so he supported you secretly, without compromising your independence. He sat beside me again. There's more you should know. The gallery I mentioned? It's in a Beacon Hill penthouse. No one in the family knows it exists. It was Edward's sanctuary, filled with your work, displayed chronologically. Seeing your growth through his eyes is powerful. I shook my head, still stunned. The uncle I thought I knew had been quietly collecting my work for years. He knew he was dying for months and never told me. Edward faced death the same way he lived, on his own terms. He spent those final months organizing everything, including this intricate will. He wanted his wealth to empower someone worthy and avoid fueling more family division. Then it hit me. Today was a test. Of them. Of all of us. Mr. Peterson nodded. He tested you too. He once told me, Emily's the only authentic one. I need to be sure money won't change her. I glanced at his signature. A fresh wave of determination surged in me. I wouldn't let him down. I'd honor this gift with the same integrity I brought to my art. So what happens now? I asked. Now, Mr. Peterson said, pushing a thick folder to me, we start transferring assets into your name. You decide when and how to tell your family. I thought of Victoria's coldness, Charlie's smug laugh, Olivia's condescending offer to join the family firm. I think they can wait a while to find out, I said. Mr. Peterson's eyes sparkled. Your uncle would approve. As the truth sank in, I felt a strange mix of thrill and panic. My life had flipped entirely. In under an hour. Everything I believed about Edward, my place, my future, had been rewritten. But one thing stayed true. I'd honor his faith in me. Not just by fulfilling the terms, but by staying true to who I was through all of this. That $10 check still sat in my wallet. Mr. Peterson was right. I'd frame it. A reminder that rejection sometimes masks the start of something far richer than money. Truth. The week after the will reading was a whirlwind of meetings, paperwork, and revelations. Mr. Peterson brought in a team of advisors, lawyers, and consultants to help me navigate my new role as majority owner of the Mitchell Group and Edward's heir. Patricia Reynolds, the financial advisor he handpicked, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who explained complex concepts like they were simple. Your uncle's estate is quite diverse. Patricia explained during our first meeting downtown. Besides the Mitchell Group shares, worth around $200 million, you now own commercial real estate in 5 states, a solid portfolio of blue-chip stocks, stakes in several tech startups, and a variety of physical properties. I sat across from her, still in my usual jeans and blouse, feeling like an imposter. It's overwhelming, I admitted. Patricia nodded. Anyone would be overwhelmed, but we'll go step by step. Your uncle left clear instructions for your transition. He wanted you to have time to adjust. No pressure to make business decisions right away. What about my family? When will they know? That's up to you, Patricia replied. Legally, the share transfer will be public in 30 days via SEC filings, but you can tell them sooner if you'd like. I considered it. A part of me wanted to call Aunt Victoria just to hear the shock in her voice, but the wiser part of me knew that was just hurt and vindictiveness talking, not who I wanted to be. I'll wait, I said. I need time to figure things out. I don't want to act out of emotion. Patricia nodded. Wise decision. In the meantime, let's talk about your immediate finances and account setup. By the meeting's end, I had a checking account with $100,000 for expenses. Patricia handed it over casually, like that was a normal amount for groceries, along with a credit card with a limit higher than my old yearly income, and a draft plan for managing my assets. I returned to my small apartment that night, feeling like I'd stepped into a dream. Nothing physical had changed. Same furniture, darkroom, photography mags, but everything felt different. I felt different. The most surreal moment came the next day, when Mr. Peterson took me to Uncle Edward's secret penthouse in Beacon Hill. It was one of Boston's most exclusive brownstones, now luxury condos. The doorman greeted Mr. Peterson and led us to a private elevator requiring a key. Your uncle bought this under his Patrick Sullivan alias, Mr. Peterson said as we rose. Not even building management knows. The elevator opened into the penthouse. I gasped. It was breathtaking. A vast open concept space with high ceilings and windows facing Boston Common. But what truly floored me were the photographs, my photographs, lining nearly every wall, beautifully framed, professionally lit, arranged from my earliest student work to my latest series. It was my evolution, curated by him. It felt like stepping into a museum of my artistic journey. He collected everything, I whispered, moving through the images. Some were gallery pieces I remembered. Others came from limited editions. A few I barely remembered. Likely student work that somehow reached him. Patrick Sullivan was just one alias, Mr. Peterson said gently. He used other names too, to avoid suspicion from buying so much of your work. At the center stood a large desk, a leather portfolio neatly placed on top. That's for you, Mr. Peterson said. I'll give you some privacy. Inside were unpublished images, early work, experiments, even personal photos from family gatherings. Tucked among them was another note from Uncle Edward. Art is truth told through deception. Cameras lie to show honesty. Maybe my deception will lead you to your truth. This space is yours now. A studio, a gallery, or home if you choose. I hope it frees you to create without limits. That night, I stayed in Uncle Edward's secret penthouse, surrounded by my art and his hidden support. It felt right, like a bridge from the past to what comes next. 2 weeks later, Aunt Victoria hosted a dinner, supposedly to plan Uncle Edward's memorial. But I knew it was really to establish herself as the new matriarch and begin reordering the power dynamics. I considered skipping it. I owed them nothing, especially after the will reading. But curiosity won. I wanted to face them with the truth I now held. I arrived fashionably late at Aunt Victoria's Brooklyn mansion, wearing a simple, elegant black dress I'd just bought. Not flashy, but well-made and flattering. A quiet upgrade that boosted my confidence without shouting my new wealth. The family sat in the formal living room when I walked in. Conversation stopped briefly as all eyes turned my way. I caught their silent evaluations, my outfit, hair, and posture all being assessed. Emily, Aunt Victoria said with practiced warmth. So glad you could join. We were just discussing the memorial. Sorry I'm late, I said, taking a glass of wine from a server. A meeting ran long. A meeting? Charlie smirked. Did someone finally buy one of your photos? Before, a comment like that would have left me red with shame or rage. Now, with the truth in my back pocket, I just smiled. Something like that. My calm reply unsettled him more than any comeback could have. He frowned, clearly puzzled by the shift in me. Dinner began in the formal dining room, with Aunt Victoria sitting at the head, Uncle Edward's old seat. I noted the symbolism, but stayed silent. Let her enjoy her illusion of succession. All through dinner, I saw them with fresh eyes, the petty games, subtle jabs, the performance of wealth. It was all so clear now, a game I'd just mastered, only to choose not to play. Emily, you're quiet tonight, Lawrence said halfway through the meal. No updates on your latest art? I sipped my wine. Just navigating some changes in my work, I said honestly. It's been taking all my focus. Changes? Olivia perked up. Are you finally considering my offer to join the company? We could find you a role in marketing. Something creative, of course, she added patronizingly. Her condescension no longer stung. It almost amused me now. No, nothing like that, I replied. But thanks for your concern. Well, I hope it's more practical than chasing galleries, Aunt Victoria added. His passing reminds us how important security and legacy are. I raised my glass. To family legacy, I said. And to Uncle Edward, who understood it best. Confused looks flickered across the room, but they raised their glasses anyway. After dinner, as coffee arrived, Charlie cornered me by the fireplace. Okay, what's going on? He asked. You're different. Did something happen after the will reading? I looked at the cousin who had mocked my humiliation so easily. Life's full of surprises, I said. Things aren't always what they seem. What does that mean? Did Peterson give you something? Another bequest? He pressed. His rapid-fire questions confirmed it. He feared something had slipped past him, something that might shake his certainty. If there was, I said, do you really think you deserve to know, after the way you acted? His face flushed. That was just, look, we were all emotional. You can't hold a little laughter against me. Can't I? I said calmly. Interesting, I'll remember that. I walked away before he could reply, leaving him stewing in suspicion. As I got ready to leave, Aunt Victoria approached. Emily, she whispered. What aren't you telling us? Did Edward leave you more? Her bluntness surprised me. She was usually more calculated than Charlie. Why would you think that? I asked. Because you're different, confident, like you know something. Her eyes narrowed. And because Edward always had a soft spot for you, despite your choices. I held her gaze. If he wanted you to know everything, he would have told you. Her lips pressed thin. We're family, Emily. Whatever secrets you're holding, they'll come out. It would be better for all if you were just transparent now. Transparency, I echoed. Interesting coming from you, Aunt Victoria. Have you always been that way? With the family? With Uncle Edward? A flicker crossed her face. Uncertainty, maybe fear. It vanished quickly, but I'd seen it. There was something buried, some history I didn't yet know. Think carefully about your next moves, she said. The Mitchell name comes with duties and expectations. I agree, I said, grabbing my coat. Uncle Edward made that very clear. Stepping into the cool night, I felt a mix of power and responsibility settle over me. I held truths they didn't, resources beyond their grasp, and a new lens on the dynamics that shaped me. For once, I held the advantage. The only question, how would I use it? 6 months later, my life had changed in ways I never imagined. The SEC filings went public. So did the news that I now owned the Mitchell Group. The family reacted just as expected. Shock, outrage, and quick pivots to win my favor. Aunt Victoria was first to call, voice tight with forced sweetness. "Emily dear, we should talk. There seems to be some confusion about Edward's wishes." "No confusion," I replied calmly. He was perfectly clear. Once the drama died down, or went underground, I began building the vision Edward's letter had sparked. My first major project, the Emily Mitchell Gallery, a space for emerging photographers like I once was. I bought an old warehouse in Boston's SOA district and transformed it into a cutting-edge gallery with artist studios. Patricia had raised an eyebrow. "You do realize this won't be profitable in the usual sense?" "Profit isn't the goal," I explained. "It's about giving others the opportunity I never had." Besides, Edward's letter asked me to use the Mitchell Foundation to uplift the arts. The foundation quickly became my central focus. Before, it made safe, tax-friendly donations to elite museums. I restructured it to fund arts education in underserved areas, give scholarships, and support working photographers. My personal life shifted too. I moved into Edward's Beacon Hill penthouse, turning part into a studio while preserving the gallery walls. It became my sanctuary, where I could create freely, always reminded of my journey and his quiet support. I kept photographing, but now with deeper purpose. My latest series focused on wealth and identity, subjects that had become unexpectedly personal. Ironically, once I no longer needed to sell my work, galleries were eager to feature it. Every dollar earned went straight to the foundation. It wasn't all smooth. My family tried to challenge the will or push for more influence over the company. Charlie was the most relentless, shifting between intimidation and fake alliance offers. "You're a photographer, not a businesswoman," he said in one tense meeting. "You need someone like me. I've worked at Mitchell Group for years." "And yet, Uncle Edward picked me," I said. Maybe he valued my perspective. "I'm not running operations. That's what the team's for. I'm here to lead with vision." What Charlie didn't know was that I'd been studying, taking business courses, reading, working with tutors. No MBA, sure, but I was determined to understand the company I owned. Olivia came at me from another angle. After a few awkward conversations, she finally opened up with what felt like sincere regret. "I was jealous," she confessed over coffee. "You followed your passion. I just did what was expected." "You could still pivot," I said. "It's not too late." She shook her head. "I wouldn't even know how. I've been a Mitchell for so long, I don't know who I'd be without it." Her honesty caught me off guard. Over time, we rebuilt our bond, not as Mitchell heirs, but two women searching for identity beyond expectation. Aunt Victoria was still the hardest to deal with. She kept trying to control family affairs, though now with more subtlety, knowing where I stood. I stayed guarded, remembering Edward's warning about trust. The biggest surprise in this new chapter? Michael Bennett, a journalist who reached out about covering arts philanthropy, smart, sincere, and refreshingly unimpressed by the Mitchell name. "So you're rich now," he said bluntly. "The real question, what are you doing with it that matters?" His blunt honesty was refreshing, just the clean perspective I needed. No legacy, no climbing. 3 months later, we started dating, and I had to figure out how and when to talk about my wealth. I chose honesty early. Instead of restaurants, I invited him to the penthouse for dinner. "Wow," he said, staring at the space and the photos. "This isn't what I expected." "Does it change anything?" I asked, feeling exposed. He thought for a moment. "It changes how I see your background," he said, "but not how I feel about you." Eventually, I believed him. Michael saw my wealth as just a part of me, not defining, not irrelevant. His work mattered to him. He made it clear he had no intention of living off my fortune. "I like paying my own way," he said. "Independence means something to me. I bet you get that more than most people with money." And I did. It was why I'd built my photography career from scratch. That drive had earned Uncle Edward's respect and still guided my choices. Near the 1-year mark of Uncle Edward's passing, I discovered something that drew me closer to his legacy. In a dusty storage box at the penthouse, I found photos, not mine, but his. Stunning black and white shots of Boston in the 70s and 80s. Gritty, alive, rarely documented. Streets of working-class families, immigrant life, raw and vibrant. Discovering Uncle Edward's hidden talent felt like uncovering a lost piece of the puzzle. It explained how deeply he understood my passion and why he'd supported me so quietly. He wasn't just a businessman dabbling in art. He'd been an artist, too. I chose to honor him by featuring his photos in a gallery exhibit dedicated to his work. Edward Mitchell. The unseen eye would hang beside the new generation I was uplifting, linking past and present. Preparing for the show, I reflected on the distance I'd traveled in a single year, from broke photographer to unlikely business owner, from outsider to respected philanthropist. It had been dizzying at times, but I stayed grounded in the values that always led me: authenticity, compassion, creative truth. The $10 check from the will now hung in my studio, framed just as Edward once suggested. Beside it was a candid photo I'd once taken of him at a family event. He wasn't facing the lens, just looking out the window, quiet, a little sad. Back then, I hadn't understood that expression. Now I thought I did. It was the look of someone torn between expectations and hidden dreams. In the end, Uncle Edward had connected both halves of his life. Now it was my turn to live whole, not split, wealthy, but not ruled by it, a Mitchell, but fully me. The day we marked Uncle Edward's passing was a perfect Boston autumn. Crisp air, golden light, and trees dressed in fire-colored leaves. The day felt more like a beginning than a memorial, perfect for the gallery opening I had envisioned. Edward Mitchell, the unseen eye, had stirred surprising attention across Boston's art scene. A hidden photographer from one of Boston's most powerful families, the media couldn't resist. And Uncle Edward's work impressed even veteran critics. These photographs showed deep empathy and striking skill, work that clearly went unseen, the Boston Globe reviewer wrote. I'd invited the whole Mitchell clan, not knowing who might actually show up. Since the will reading, family ties had twisted in strange and complicated ways. Some bonds had mended, others remained frayed, or just more complicated. The gallery looked stunning. The main gallery showcased Uncle Edward's work, bold black and white prints capturing raw human moments. A second space displayed 6 new photographers, recipients of the first Mitchell Foundation grants. My own series filled a third room, linking past, present, and future through 3 generations of photography. I came early to walk through the space, pride mixing with nervous energy as I took it all in. Michael arrived soon after, sharp in a suit he'd insisted on paying for himself. "This is amazing, Emily," he said. "Edward would be proud." "I hope so," I replied. "It still feels like I'm solving a puzzle he left me." He squeezed my hand. "Maybe that was the point. He gave you freedom, not instructions." Guests began trickling in: critics, artists, local influencers, and finally family. Aunt Victoria was first. Impeccably dressed, her gaze scanned the gallery before settling on me. "Emily," she said, kissing my cheek with practiced grace. "I wasn't expecting this." "I'm glad you came," I said honestly. "It means something to have you here." She glanced at the photos. "I didn't know Edward was into photography." "I don't think he believed he was allowed to," I said. The family expected other things. Something shifted in her eyes. Regret, maybe. "Yes," she murmured. "We did." Charlie showed up with a new girlfriend, a sleek finance type who looked bored out of her mind. He'd kept his distance since our last argument about the company. Tonight, though, he tried civility. "Nice place," he said, surveying the room. "I still don't get why you'd drop millions on a warehouse." Charlie muttered. You could have just rented space. It's not just about displaying art, I said. There are studios, dark rooms, even classrooms. It's a community hub. He shrugged, still not getting it. But hey, at least he wasn't being rude. Baby steps. Olivia came solo and lingered in front of every photograph, especially Uncle Edward's. Her eyes shimmered when she found me. I never really knew him, she said quietly. Me neither, I admitted. These photos showed me a part of him I never saw while he was alive. Do you think he was happy? Olivia asked. Living the life everyone expected instead of this? I'd asked myself that same question more than once while curating his work. I think he found ways to express who he was. Even in silence, I said. His gift to me was freedom from that silence. The night moved on. Champagne, speeches, and the wonderful hum of people truly connecting with the art. Toward the end, Mr. Peterson found me, looking slightly out of place in his tailored suit among the creative crowd. Miss Mitchell, he greeted me. Your uncle would have been proud, and maybe slightly horrified to see his private work on display. I laughed. I know, but I think he'd understand. He nodded. Edward asked me to give you this. He handed me a small envelope, my name written in Uncle Edward's familiar script, just like before. Should I? I nodded toward a quiet corner. Of course, he said. I'll make sure you're left alone. I stepped aside and opened it. Inside was a single page, his handwriting clear and steady. Emily, a year has passed. You've faced the first wave, wealth and family pressure. Now comes the real work, holding on to who you are without the struggle pushing you. Remember, money's a great servant but a terrible master. Use it for your vision, not your identity. With faith in you are. I read it again, then folded it carefully. Uncle Edward, always the truth teller. The past year had been about adapting. Now came the true test. Who I'd became. So much was ahead, expanding the foundation, deepening my art, maybe even reshaping the Mitchell Group for the better. As the night drew to a close, I ended up beside Aunt Victoria, both of us quietly observing one of Uncle Edward's most moving photos. A proud, elderly woman on the stoop of a triple-decker in South Boston, kids laughing and playing around her. He always cared about people's stories, Aunt Victoria said softly. That's what made him a great businessman. She turned to me. I still don't fully understand why he left the company to you, she admitted. But after tonight, seeing this side of him, I think I'm starting to. It wasn't an apology, not quite, but it was a start. A small, unexpected olive branch. A small bridge across the long-standing distance between us. Would you like to have dinner next week? I asked. Just us. I'd like to hear more about him from your side. Surprise flashed across her face, followed by what might have been gratitude. I'd like that, she said quietly. As the guests trickled out and Michael helped the team pack up, I stepped outside for a breath of stillness. The Boston skyline shimmered above me, old and new woven together in the crisp night air. 1 year ago, I was Emily Mitchell, the struggling artist, the family letdown. Now I was Emily Mitchell, gallery owner, philanthropist, businesswoman, and still, always, a photographer, still searching for truth through the lens. What Uncle Edward gave me wasn't just money, it was possibility, the freedom to define success my way, to open doors for others, and to stay true to who I was, even when everything around me changed. That $10 inheritance, once a cruel joke, turned out to be the gateway to something richer than any bank account. Freedom, not just from bills or debt, but from the exhausting need to earn my family's approval, measured in dollars and titles. Of course, freedom comes with weight. To build, not just spend. To stay grounded in the values I had long before wealth showed up. I gazed across the city skyline, feeling both the gravity and the grace of what I now carried. I knew more challenges were coming. Family drama, business choices, fragile new bonds. But for the first time since Uncle Edward died, I felt ready to face them. Not as his heir, as me. I thought of Uncle Edward's last words. Let money serve your vision. Don't let it define it. Maybe that was his true legacy. Not the money, but the example of how to live authentically, even inside boundaries. He'd found his passion quietly, humbly, in the shadows. He used his wealth to uplift the art he truly valued, including mine. In a family obsessed with conformity, he'd managed to keep his own perspective alive. I walked back into the gallery, where Michael stood waiting with a warm smile. Tomorrow would bring its share of challenges and chances. But tonight, surrounded by 3 generations of photographs, Uncle Edward's, mine, and the bold new artists we were uplifting, I felt something powerful: continuity, clarity, and purpose. Thanks for walking this journey with me. And never forget, your worth has nothing to do with your bank account.